I still remember that electrifying moment as if it were splashed in neon across my mind. The moment I discovered that my wife had secretly used my money to buy a house, a lavish property meant to be our shared sanctuary, and that I had been kept completely in the dark about it. In those first 100 heartbeats, every hope I had held for a secure joint future shattered into fragments of betrayal and disbelief. The realization hit me like a bolt of lightning. The funds I had painstakingly saved, the sacrifices I'd made night after night to build our dream, had been diverted to purchase a home that was now hers alone. That betrayal ignited a fierce resolve within me, a promise that if she could betray me so deeply, then I would reclaim my destiny and take back what was rightfully mine. And so, in that searing moment of heartache and clarity, I decided I would put that house up for sale, without her ever knowing. For as long as I can remember, I had dedicated myself to building a secure future for us. I worked tirelessly, saving every extra dollar, convinced that every sacrifice was a brick laid in the foundation of our shared dreams. I envisioned a cozy home filled with laughter, where we could start a family and grow old together. Every deposit into our joint account was a promise of stability, a testament to the long nights and hard work I endured. I trusted her implicitly, believing that our finances were the symbol of our commitment. Yet, as the years went by, subtle shifts began to appear in our relationship. Glances that held secrets, hushed phone conversations, and an air of quiet detachment that I naively attributed to stress. I never imagined that behind that veneer of normalcy, she was plotting a future that excluded me entirely. One late autumn evening, after a grueling day at work, I returned home with the familiar weight of responsibility on my shoulders. I had always looked forward to coming home, to see the warm smile on her face and the comforting hum of our shared life. Instead, I found the living room eerily quiet, the soft glow of lamplight casting long shadows on the walls that once echoed with laughter. In the study, as I sipped a cup of coffee and scanned through our bank statements on my laptop, a routine I had always found reassuring, I noticed anomalies that made my heart skip a beat. Transactions I did not recognize were siphoning away our emergency savings, the same funds I had guarded so fiercely for our future. I stared in disbelief at the numbers, feeling as if the ground had vanished beneath me. Every cent of the money I had painstakingly saved was now gone, reallocated to purchase a house without my consent, without my knowledge. The shock was overwhelming. I spent that night in a haze, barely able to process the betrayal. How could the woman I loved and trusted use my money to buy a house, our supposed dream home, behind my back? The thought echoed in my mind, a relentless reminder that the future we had planned had been stolen from me. I recalled all the late nights at the office, the endless sacrifices, and every small victory that had built up to that moment of supposed financial security. Now all of that was tainted by deceit. My mind raced with questions. When had this happened? Had I missed the subtle signs, the furtive phone calls, the hushed whispers when I wasn't around? My heart pounded with both anger and sorrow as I realized that our shared life had been built on a lie. In the days that followed, I drifted through my home in a daze, each room a painful reminder of our lost future. I wandered aimlessly, touching the photographs on the mantel, the familiar pieces of decor that had once symbolized our love, and feeling a deep, gnawing emptiness in every corner. The realization that she had secreted away our funds to secure a home without me left me questioning everything. I had believed in our future, in the shared sacrifices and dreams that had once united us. Now that foundation was crumbling, replaced by a bitter truth that cut me to the core. But in that moment of profound betrayal, amid the raw pain and the relentless storm of emotions, I also found a seed of resolve taking root deep within me. I began to question not only her actions but also my own complacency. Had I been so enamored with the idea of our shared future that I failed to see the warning signs? Was I so absorbed in the pursuit of financial security that I neglected the subtle signals of discontent? The questions stung, yet they awakened a long-dormant part of me, a part that had always dreamed of forging my own path, of standing on my own 2 feet, and of building a future based solely on my own convictions. That night, with the bitter taste of betrayal still fresh on my tongue, I opened an old leather-bound journal, the one I had filled with dreams and plans during better times, and began to write. Every word poured out like a torrent of emotions, the searing pain of being deceived, the shock of discovering that our shared savings were gone, and most importantly, the burgeoning determination to reclaim my destiny. I wrote about the sacrifices I had made, the long hours at work, and the quiet pride I had once felt in contributing to our future. As the ink flowed across the pages, I began to see a new vision emerging, a vision of a future that was entirely my own, where my efforts would be honored and my worth recognized. I promised myself that if she could use our money without my consent, then I would use every ounce of my determination to build a life that was free from deceit, a life where I was the sole architect of my own success. In that journal, I outlined my plan. I would quietly put the house up for sale. I would reclaim the funds that had been so callously misappropriated, and I would channel every remaining resource into building a future defined by integrity, hard work, and personal empowerment. I resolved that I would no longer be a silent victim of betrayal, but a man who took decisive, unyielding action to secure his dreams. Every stroke of the pen was a declaration that my future would no longer be dictated by someone else's secret ambitions. I would use that stolen money to fuel my own aspirations, to invest in ventures that resonated with my vision, and to prove without a doubt that my worth could not be diminished by betrayal. As the night wore on and the weight of my revelations began to lift, I felt a quiet determination growing within me, a spark that promised rebirth. I realized that, while the pain of her betrayal would always linger, it could also serve as the catalyst for my transformation. I was now at a crossroads, faced with a stark choice: continue to mourn a future that had been stolen, or seize the moment and forge a new path defined by my own ambitions. With that thought echoing in my mind, I closed my journal and looked out into the dark, starless night. In the stillness, I made a silent vow: I would reclaim what was rightfully mine, my dignity, my future, and every dream I had ever nurtured. I would sell that house without her knowing, and in doing so, I would take back control of my destiny. That fateful night marked not just an end, but the beginning of a transformation that would reshape every facet of my life. I knew that the journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, the legal battles, the emotional scars, and the relentless task of rebuilding, but I was ready. The betrayal had awakened a fierce determination within me, a resolve that I would no longer let anyone or any secret dictate my future. With the first rays of a new dawn promising hope and possibility, I stepped into a future that was mine to define, one courageous, determined step at a time. In the days after that fateful night, when I discovered our emergency fund had been entirely drained to fund her secret affair, I found myself in a whirlwind of shock, anger, and an unexpected surge of determination. The betrayal had not only shattered the safety net we'd so carefully built over years of scrimping and saving, but it also exposed a chasm in our relationship I had never truly seen. Every moment in the following weeks was a raw confrontation with the reality that I was left alone to pick up the shattered pieces of a future we once promised to share. I spent long hours poring over bank statements, rechecking every transaction, and feeling the icy grip of disbelief as I watched the numbers confirm that our emergency fund was gone. It was as though every dollar, each hard-won cent, had been siphoned off into a secret life that did not include me. I remember sitting in our living room in a haze, the silence around me echoing with the memories of better days when our shared financial goals had been a symbol of our mutual trust. The stark emptiness of the room made the betrayal all the more acute. I found myself questioning everything. Had I missed the subtle hints, the hushed phone calls, the furtive glances, the unexplained outings? Every detail that once seemed innocuous now took on a dark, foreboding meaning. That night, as I stared at the vacant bank account on my computer screen, the mixture of grief and rage was nearly paralyzing. And yet, amidst that raw turmoil, a determined thought began to crystallize: I would not allow her reckless choices to dictate my future. I would take every necessary step to reclaim the life I had envisioned for myself. I began by confronting the financial chaos head-on. Every morning, before the city stirred, I dedicated time to meticulously review my finances. I combed through every statement, tracking the exact moments when the funds had vanished. I reached out to our bank for a detailed transaction history, and each confirmed withdrawal deepened the wound of betrayal but also steeled my resolve. I remembered that I had always been cautious, always held a reserve for myself, money I had set aside in anticipation of uncertain times. That foresight, which at the time had been a quiet safeguard, now shone as my lifeline. Even though our joint emergency fund was decimated by her impulsive actions, I still had the means to rebuild. With every meeting I had with my financial advisor, discussing strategies for reallocation and diversification, I began to see a pathway forward. My personal assets, though modest, were secure, and they formed the foundation upon which I would construct a future independent of her betrayals. In tandem with the financial work, I was forced to reckon with a storm of emotions that seemed almost too vast to navigate. At first, every day was a battle against a suffocating sense of loss and humiliation. I spent countless nights alone, pacing the silent halls of our home that had once been filled with warmth and shared laughter. In those quiet, heart-wrenching hours, I would replay that night over and over in my mind, the shock of seeing the empty emergency fund, the devastating realization that she had spent our hard-earned money on a secret affair, and the way the betrayal sank its claws deep into my very soul. The pain was acute, but it also forced me to confront the stark truth. I had been living in a fantasy of shared dreams that was, in reality, built on fragile trust. Every tear I shed became a bitter reminder of the future that had been stolen, yet it also slowly ignited within me a fierce resolve to reclaim my life. Seeking clarity amid the emotional chaos, I decided to seek professional help. I began attending therapy sessions where I allowed myself to be vulnerable, to expose every raw, unfiltered emotion that had been buried beneath years of silent sacrifice. My therapist, with compassionate understanding, helped me untangle the myriad of feelings swirling inside me, the searing anger, the profound sorrow, and even the small flickers of self-doubt that had crept in over time. We talked about the nature of betrayal, about the importance of self-respect, and most importantly, about the fact that I was not defined by someone else's reckless choices. Each session was like peeling away a layer of hurt, revealing beneath it a strength I had long forgotten existed. I began to understand that while the betrayal was irreversible, I could still choose to rise above it. I learned to let go, not of the memory of what had happened, but of the weight it held over me. I discovered that forgiveness, when embraced for one's own healing, was a liberating act that allowed me to reclaim the future I was determined to build. Emboldened by this newfound clarity, I resolved to redirect my energies into my professional life. I dove headfirst into work, letting the hospital corridors become my arena for transformation. The long shifts that once felt like burdens now became opportunities to prove my mettle, to demonstrate that my skills, honed through years of dedication, were far more than a means to earn a paycheck. They were a part of my identity, a reflection of my determination to forge ahead despite the odds. I volunteered for challenging surgeries, took on projects that stretched my capabilities, and began to speak up in board meetings with a confidence that gradually won the respect of my peers and superiors. Every time I performed a surgery with precision, every time my innovative approach led to a successful outcome, I felt a piece of my dignity restored. The operating room, with its steady hum of machines and the focused intensity of my team, became a place where I could channel the raw energy of my heartbreak into something life-affirming. With every successful procedure, I reclaimed a little more of the identity I had almost lost, a reminder that my worth was defined not by her betrayal, but by my own relentless pursuit of excellence. The more I immersed myself in work, the more I discovered hidden reservoirs of resilience within me. I began to set new professional goals, ones that were as ambitious as they were personal. I sought opportunities for advanced training, attended specialized workshops, and even began to mentor junior colleagues who looked up to me not just for my technical skill, but for the strength I had shown in overcoming personal adversity. I realized that every long night, every extra hour spent perfecting my craft, was a step toward building a legacy that would outlast any temporary betrayal. My renewed focus was not an act of defiance against her, it was an affirmation of my own self-worth. I began to see that while she had chosen to squander our future on fleeting indulgences, I was constructing something lasting, a career built on passion, integrity, and unyielding determination. Outside the hospital, my personal life slowly began to mend as well. I reached out to friends and family who had long supported me, those who had seen me at my best and who now rallied around me in my time of need. We met over coffee in quiet cafes, where in the soft glow of early morning light, we talked about everything from old memories to our hopes for the future. Their encouragement was a steady reminder that my value was not diminished by her actions. It was a reflection of who I had always been, a person of resilience and quiet strength. Their words, filled with empathy and understanding, reinforced my belief that I was not alone in this journey, that many had faced similar betrayals and emerged stronger on the other side. As the days turned into weeks, I began to explore new creative outlets to help process the flood of emotions. I returned to writing, a passion I had once shelved in the busyness of life, and poured my thoughts into essays and journal entries. I began to document my journey with an honesty that was both brutal and cathartic, sharing not just the heartbreak, but the small victories and moments of clarity that followed. Each word, each sentence, was a step toward healing, a way to transform the raw pain of betrayal into a narrative of self-empowerment. I even started a private blog, sharing my story with a small but growing audience of readers who, like me, had experienced the sting of betrayal and were seeking solace in the shared human experience of rising above it. Every day became a delicate balancing act, navigating the demands of a high-pressure career while tending to the fragile wounds of the heart. Mornings were reserved for the solitude of long runs that cleared my mind and allowed me to reflect on the journey ahead. Afternoons were consumed by the relentless pace of work, where every challenge was met with a determination that had been forged in the crucible of heartbreak. Evenings were for introspection and creativity, hours spent with my journal, with a book, or with the gentle strum of my guitar. This rigorous routine, though demanding, began to weave a new tapestry of self-belief and independence. Each day, I felt a little more in control, a little more capable of turning the bitter taste of betrayal into the sweet promise of a brighter future. I also began to set concrete plans for the future, drawing up detailed strategies for advancing my career further. I attended seminars on leadership and innovation, networked with industry veterans, and explored opportunities for additional certifications and specialized training. Each step I took was a declaration that I would not be defined by a single act of betrayal, that my dreams were too large, too important, to be compromised by someone else's deceit. I was building a new identity, one forged in the fires of adversity and tempered by the steady, unwavering belief that I deserved every bit of success that lay ahead. As the weeks melded into months, the cumulative effect of all my efforts began to manifest in every facet of my life. My professional successes grew more frequent and significant. Project after project, negotiation after negotiation, each one affirming that I was more than capable of leading, of innovating, and of excelling. I was recognized by my peers, promoted by my superiors, and, most importantly, I began to see myself as someone who had risen above the betrayal that once threatened to break me. I also noticed that my personal well-being had improved markedly. The weight of loneliness and despair that had once clung so heavily to me was gradually lifting, replaced by a sense of peace that came from knowing I was in control of my destiny. Yet, even as external markers of success began to shine, I continued to confront the deeper emotional scars. There were days when the memory of that fateful night would surge back, a tidal wave of hurt that left me momentarily breathless. In those moments, I would retreat to the quiet corners of my apartment, let my emotions flow onto paper, and remind myself that each tear was a step toward healing. I learned to embrace vulnerability, to accept that the scars of betrayal were not weaknesses but evidence of the battles I had fought and won. Through meditation, reflection, and the unwavering support of loved ones, I began to transform that pain into a wellspring of inner strength, a foundation upon which I would build the rest of my life. And so, day by day, with every challenge met and every small victory celebrated, I forged a new path forward. I had turned the raw, searing pain of betrayal into the fuel that propelled me toward a future defined by my own dreams. I began to see the possibilities that lay ahead, new opportunities in my career, exciting ventures that promised personal fulfillment, and a future where my financial security was no longer threatened by someone else's deceit. Every new goal I set, every bold step I took, was a quiet defiance against the past, a statement that I was in control of my destiny, that I would not allow her betrayal to diminish the man I had become. In that relentless pursuit of self-reclamation, I discovered something truly extraordinary, the realization that my journey was not just about overcoming a single moment of betrayal, but about rediscovering the very essence of who I was. I embraced the full spectrum of my experiences, the joys, the sorrows, the quiet moments of introspection, and allowed them to shape a new, more authentic self. I learned that true strength comes not from denying your pain, but from transforming it into the fuel for your future. And with each passing day, that strength grew, culminating in a deep, unshakable confidence that now carried me forward, no matter what challenges lay ahead. That cold morning, when the first rays of sunlight crept through the curtains of my study, I knew that everything had changed forever. I sat at my desk, once cluttered with dreams of shared futures and mutual success, now meticulously organized with plans for a new beginning, and reflected on the long, turbulent journey that had brought me here. The betrayal of discovering that my wife had secretly used our money to buy a house, a place we were supposed to build together, had once filled me with a searing, almost unbearable pain. But now, as I surveyed the documents on my desk and listened to the soft hum of the city awakening outside, I felt that pain transform into a steady, unyielding resolve. I had made my decision. I would put that house up for sale without her ever knowing, and in doing so, I would reclaim not only the funds but my dignity, my independence, and my future. In the months following that devastating revelation, I embarked on an arduous path of introspection and action. I revisited every memory of shared laughter and quiet hope, now tainted by her secretive ambition. I remembered the nights when I painstakingly saved every spare dollar, the countless hours spent at work, and the unwavering belief that our joint efforts would yield a future secure in the form of a dream home. That vision, once bright and full of promise, had been shattered by her betrayal. Yet, in that dark moment, I discovered a hidden strength, a determination to rebuild my life on my own terms. I began by meticulously reviewing all the financial records, confirming with cold, hard evidence that every cent meant for our safety net had been misappropriated. It was a blow that stung deeply, but it also served as the catalyst for my transformation. Every day became a lesson in resilience. I spent hours at the bank, meeting with financial advisors who confirmed that while our joint account was nearly empty, I had always maintained a secret reserve for myself, a contingency plan I had set in motion long before this betrayal. That foresight, born of a quiet instinct for self-preservation, was now my lifeline. With my personal funds secure, I began to draft a meticulous plan to reclaim my future. I envisioned selling the house she had bought with our money, a symbol of everything we had lost, and using the proceeds to reinvest in my own dreams. I jotted down ideas, made lists of potential real estate brokers, and even researched the local market with an intensity that consumed me. Every statistic, every trend I uncovered, was a building block for the future I would create, a future defined not by betrayal, but by my own relentless drive and unwavering self-worth. As I moved through that period, my work became both an anchor and a proving ground. I threw myself into my job with a renewed passion that surprised even me. The operating rooms, the late nights in the hospital, and the endless consultations with colleagues became arenas where I transformed my inner turmoil into focused energy. Every surgery I performed, every critical decision I made, was a step toward redefining my identity. I began to see that the long hours I once took for granted, the sacrifices made in pursuit of professional excellence, were not burdens. They were the very foundation of the man I had become. With every successful procedure and every nod of respect from peers, I reclaimed a part of myself that had been nearly lost in the wake of her betrayal. My promotion was not just an upward move in my career, it was a powerful affirmation that I was capable, worthy, and destined for greatness regardless of the past. Outside of work, my personal life began to take on a new, vibrant hue. I reconnected with old friends, people who had known me before the weight of our shared dreams had stifled my individuality, and formed new relationships with those who valued authenticity over pretense. We gathered in small, intimate settings, sharing stories and laughing over coffee, and each conversation reminded me that my worth was not defined by the mistakes of others, but by the strength I carried within me. These friendships, built on trust and mutual respect, became the pillars that supported my journey of healing. I found solace in simple pleasures, long walks in the park, evenings spent reading in quiet corners, and even the gentle strum of my guitar as I rediscovered my passion for music. Every moment of genuine connection was a reminder that I was not alone and that my story of recovery resonated with others who had also faced heartbreak. Simultaneously, I sought to process the emotional chaos through creative expression. I returned to writing with a fervor I hadn't known since my youth, channeling the raw, unfiltered emotions of betrayal and loss into long, cathartic essays and journal entries. The words flowed onto paper as if cleansing my soul, each sentence a testament to my journey from despair to determination. I even started a blog where I shared my story with a small but growing audience. The feedback I received was both heartening and empowering. Strangers, many of whom had experienced their own betrayals, reached out with messages of support and solidarity. It was in those moments that I realized my pain was not just mine to bear. It was a shared experience that could inspire others to find strength in their own struggles. As my inner and outer worlds began to realign, I turned my focus back to the looming task at hand: selling the house. The property, purchased in secret with money we had both saved, had become the physical embodiment of betrayal. I visited it in the quiet hours of the day, tracing my fingers along the walls, feeling the echoes of what had once been a symbol of our shared future. Now it was a reminder of everything that had been lost, but also a catalyst for new beginnings. I contacted a discreet real estate broker, someone with a reputation for handling sensitive transactions with care, and we began the painstaking process of listing the house for sale. Every document I signed, every negotiation I engaged in, was a step toward reclaiming the financial security that had been so callously misappropriated. I spent hours combing through market analyses, studying comparable properties, and setting a price that would ensure I recovered as much of our lost savings as possible. It wasn't just about the money, it was about sending a message. Selling the house without her knowledge was a declaration that I was no longer willing to be sidelined in my own life. With every meeting with potential buyers, I felt a growing sense of empowerment. I was reclaiming not just the funds, but also the autonomy that had been stripped away by her secretive actions. Each step in the sale process was imbued with the bitter sweetness of retribution, a reminder that while betrayal had once threatened to break me, it now served as the fuel for my resurgence. Legal proceedings, though daunting, became another arena where I asserted my independence. I consulted with attorneys to ensure that the sale was conducted according to the strictest legal protocols, safeguarding my interests at every turn. Each legal document, every carefully worded clause, reinforced the idea that I was in control of my destiny. The process was meticulous and, at times, excruciating, as I revisited every detail of our financial agreements and the decisions that had led to this moment. But with every signature and every legal consultation, I felt my resolve solidify. I was no longer a passive participant in a relationship defined by deception. I was the master of my own fate, reclaiming my future one decisive action at a time. Amid these practical steps, the emotional journey of healing continued to evolve. There were moments when the memory of her betrayal, the cold calculation that had led her to buy a house without my knowledge, would surge up, unbidden, leaving me overwhelmed by a mix of anger and sorrow. In those moments, I would retreat to the solitude of my new apartment, sit quietly in the soft glow of the evening, and allow myself to feel the pain fully. I would then take out my journal and write, pouring every raw emotion onto the pages until gradually, the ache began to transform into something else, a deep, abiding sense of strength and self-reclamation. I learned that forgiveness was not about excusing her actions, but about freeing myself from the chains of resentment that threatened to hold me back. I began to understand that every tear shed was a testament to my capacity for healing and that every moment of vulnerability was a stepping stone toward reclaiming my identity. As the weeks turned into months, the tangible outcomes of my efforts started to merge with the internal metamorphosis I was experiencing. My professional life was flourishing. Each successful surgery, every innovative procedure, was a building block in the reconstruction of my identity. I was promoted to lead a specialized team, and my colleagues began to see me not just as a competent surgeon, but as a resilient leader whose strength of character had been forged in the fires of personal betrayal. Recognition flowed in, both from within the hospital and from industry peers who admired my work ethic and unwavering commitment. The accolades were a reminder that I had risen above the pain and that my future was still bright. On a personal level, I started to create a new network of supportive relationships. I formed deep, genuine bonds with people who had faced their own hardships, and we gathered in small, intimate groups to share our stories, our losses, and our triumphs. These interactions were transformative. They reinforced my belief that I was not alone in my struggle and that the journey of healing was a universal one. In the company of these kindred spirits, I learned that the pain of betrayal could be transcended through mutual support and shared wisdom. We celebrated every small victory, every breakthrough, and every moment of clarity as a collective affirmation that our worth was not defined by the betrayals we had endured, but by the strength with which we rose above them. As the seasons changed, I felt a deep, inner evolution taking place. The house I had put up for sale, once a painful symbol of deception, was now a project in transition, a stepping stone toward reclaiming the financial security that had been stolen from me. The process of selling the property was painstaking, filled with endless paperwork, negotiations, and moments of bittersweet reflection. But with every step, I felt more empowered, more in control of my destiny. I realized that this was not just a transaction. It was the final act in a drama of betrayal, a decisive moment where I reclaimed the future that was once threatened. The funds from the sale would serve as a cornerstone for my next chapter, a chapter built on the principles of integrity, hard work, and unwavering self-respect. In quiet moments of reflection, I began to see my journey as a tapestry woven from threads of pain, resilience, and triumph. Every setback had led me to a deeper understanding of who I was, and every challenge had taught me the value of standing by my own dreams. The echoes of that fateful night, the shock of her secret purchase, the bitter realization of our squandered savings, had once threatened to drown me in sorrow. But now, those echoes had become the driving force behind my transformation. I had learned that betrayal, as devastating as it could be, was not the end of the story. It was the beginning of a journey toward self-empowerment and a future defined by my own choices. In the final stretch of this long, winding path, I began to solidify my vision for the future. I drafted detailed plans for how I would reinvest the proceeds from the house sale into new ventures that excited me, projects that would not only restore my financial security but also serve as a testament to my enduring resilience. I envisioned a life where I continued to excel in my profession, where my creative pursuits and personal passions thrived alongside my career achievements. I set ambitious goals, mapping out every step from furthering my education to expanding my business, all with the unwavering belief that my worth was mine to define. Every new plan, every calculated risk, was a declaration that I was no longer a victim of betrayal, but a victor who had transformed pain into power. And so, with the sale of that house underway and the future unfolding like a canvas waiting to be painted, I stood at the crossroads of a new beginning. I looked back on the turbulent months with a mix of sorrow and quiet pride. Sorrow for the love that had been betrayed, and pride for the strength that had emerged in its place. I realized that my journey had been a crucible that purified my ambitions and honed my sense of self. I had built a life from the remnants of betrayal, a life defined not by the scars of the past but by the limitless potential of tomorrow. Now, as I step into this promising future, I do so with a heart full of gratitude and a mind sharpened by every trial I have faced. I have reclaimed my identity, rebuilt my finances, and rediscovered the passion that drives me. The pain of her betrayal has not disappeared. It remains as a reminder of how far I have come and as a symbol of the resilience that defines me. I know that challenges will continue to arise, that the journey of healing is perpetual, but I also know that I have the inner strength to navigate whatever comes my way. Standing on the threshold of a new chapter, I make a silent vow. I will never again allow someone else's deception to dictate my worth. My destiny is now entirely in my hands. A tapestry woven from hard-won lessons, the support of those who believed in me, and the relentless pursuit of my own dreams. With every step forward, I carry with me the unshakable conviction that I am the architect of my future, and that every setback is merely the beginning of a new triumph. This is my story, a saga of betrayal transformed into empowerment, of a man who, when faced with the ultimate deception, chose not to crumble but to rise and rebuild his world. As I continue to write the chapters of my life, I do so with a heart emboldened by resilience, a mind set on endless possibilities, and a spirit that will never be defined by the mistakes of the past. Every challenge, every tear, and every moment of doubt has become a stepping stone toward a future that is entirely my own. A future where I reclaim my dignity, secure my legacy, and prove that even in the face of the deepest betrayal, the human spirit can emerge triumphant, stronger than ever before.